January 6, 2021. A day when a mob fueled by lies and misinformation stormed the Capitol building. This sacred space, a symbol of American freedom, was desecrated. The world watched in horror as lawmakers were forced to flee for their lives. The images of that day are forever seared into our collective memory. They serve as a stark reminder of the fragility of democracy. The events of January 6th were a direct assault on the peaceful transfer of power. They were an attempt to overturn the will of the American people. And they were incited by the then President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. His words, laced with baseless claims of election fraud, whipped the crowd into a frenzy. They marched on the Capitol, egged on by his pronouncements. The consequences of that day continue to reverberate. In the aftermath of the attack, there were calls for accountability, investigations were launched, charges were filed against those who had participated in the violence. But then, on his last day in office, Trump wielded his presidential power one last time. He issued a flurry of pardons, including for individuals involved in the January 6th insurrection. The power to pardon is a potent tool. It's meant to be used judiciously, in the interest of justice and mercy, but in the hands of Donald Trump, it took on a different hue. He used it to shield allies, settle political scores, and, in the case of the January 6th pardons, to seemingly absolve those who had attacked the very heart of American democracy. The list of those pardoned read like a who's who of the January 6th rioters. There was, name redacted, the self-proclaimed shaman who breached the Senate chamber, horns and all. There was, name redacted, who had assaulted police officers during the riot. These pardons were not acts of mercy. They were a slap in the face to the rule of law. The pardons were met with immediate and widespread condemnation. Legal scholars decried them as an abuse of power. The January 6th pardons ripped open the already gaping wounds in the American political landscape. They deepened the partisan divide, fueled conspiracy theories, and further eroded trust in government. On the right, Trump's most ardent supporters cheered the pardons. They echoed his claims that the January 6th rioters were political prisoners, victims of a witch hunt. On the left, there was a sense of disbelief, anger, and profound sadness. Many saw the pardons as confirmation of their worst fears, that Trump was above the law. They worried about the message this sent, both domestically and internationally. How could America preach the rule of law while its former leader seemed to operate with impunity? Presidential pardons have always been controversial. From Gerald Ford's pardon of Richard Nixon to Bill Clinton's pardon of Mark Rich, these acts of executive clemency have often been seen as driven by political expediency. But the January 6th pardons felt different. They struck at the very heart of American democracy, raising profound questions about the rule of law. These pardons stand as a stark reminder of the fragility of democratic norms. They highlight the dangers of unchecked executive power. The erosion of trust in government reached new depths in the wake of the January 6th pardons. They serve as a cautionary tale, a reminder that the price of freedom is eternal vigilance.